She, it's time to rest now. Let the tides inside your mind begin to ebb, the winds of the day falling still, your limbs sinking softly into the mattress like a ship anchoring in calm waters. There's no need to steer anymore. The wheel is turned loose. The waves are gentle. The night is safe. Let your breath come slow, easy, and steady like the swell of a quiet sea under a starlit sky. Inhale deeply and let go. You are floating now, free of burden, with the warm scent of salt and worn timber in the air. There's been no prize ship in over 3 weeks. Rations are thin. The captain, once charming, now erratic, has grown short-tempered, favoring rum over reason. He lashed a sailor for slouching at the rail, and rumors whisper he skimmed extra coin from the last Spanish haul. You saw it too. The sealed chest carried to his quarters, never inventoried with the rest. Men don't forget things like that. And on a pirate ship, memory is dangerous. You lie there, cradled by the ship's slow sway, listening to the sounds above, the soft footsteps of men pretending not to conspire, and when it finally bursts, when the crew explodes in action, it is not glory. It is blood and silence, the scrape of metal being sharpened, the faint cough of someone too nervous to sleep. And you wonder, will you survive what's coming? All around you, the creak of ropes and the soft slap of water against hull. The men gather in 2s and 3s ostensibly to dice or chew dried fruit, but really to talk. You had to when you joined. One said, "Every man shall have an equal vote in affairs of moment." Another, "No striking another aboard, but quarrels to be ended on shore, at sword's point." And yet there's an unspoken article too. When the crew turns on you, you don't die from the knife, you die from silence, from nods and knowing glances, from everyone looking away, about fairness, about shares, about rules. Because pirates, surprisingly, have rules, written ones scratched onto sheets of parchment and nailed to the mast before any voyage. Articles, they're called, and in those articles, captains are not kings, they are elected, replaced if they break the code. Mutiny is not lawless. It is deadly democracy. The ship rocks slowly, not with danger, but with rhythm. You are drifting safe as we prepare to journey backward through time. Our story today begins on the open sea, somewhere in the year 1718, what some would come to call the golden age of piracy. The Atlantic stretches endlessly in all directions, bruised blue and silver under the setting sun. And then you realize he's building a raft, or a plank, or perhaps even preparing the brig to hold the man they once followed. There's a heaviness in the air, like pressure before a storm. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. The sails above you shiver slightly in the wind, tethered to masts that groan like old trees. The ship is not a navy vessel, nor merchant, nor weigher. No, she is lean and low, her hull dark with pitch, her decks scrubbed not for honor, but for blood. This is a pirate ship, and you, for now, are aboard it. You are not the captain. No one here is above suspicion. Your role is lower, quieter, swapping decks, helping hoist sails, keeping your ears open and your eyes sharp. You are learning the ways of this vessel not from charts or instruction, but by watching those around you. How they speak in whispers near the mizzen mast, how the gunner's mate sharpens more than cannon tools, how the cook never turns his back on the boatswain. This is not a ship ruled by respect. It is ruled by fear, and not of the sea, not even of the noose. The greatest fear aboard this ship is your crewmates, because on a pirate ship, order is not enforced from above, it is maintained from below by uneasy agreement. And when that order breaks, when enough men begin to grumble that the captain's share is too fat, that he's growing soft or too cruel, or unlucky at sea, then comes mutiny, and no one, not even the bravest, survives a mutiny unscarred. Tonight the mood is foul. As dusk thickens, the deck grows quiet. You know this because you've read the articles yourself. Tonight they are looking away from the captain. Below deck you hear the carpenter hammering near the stern. Odd he's not repairing anything. You retreat to your hammock early, but sleep does not come. Because mutiny is not quick, it is not like in the plays. It is slow, like a leak in the hull. But that part comes with dawn, and by then you will have to choose the captain or the crew, and either way, something in you won't survive. The dawn creeps in gray and wet, the sun hidden behind low clouds that hang heavy over the horizon. The ocean seems hushed, not calm but expectant, like a vast beast holding its breath. The ship rocks gently, and every creak of its timbers sounds like a whisper too loud. You rise from your hammock quietly, boots slung under one arm, heart already thudding in your chest, not from the movement of the sea, but from the knowledge that this morning is not like others. There's no bell rung, no orders barked. He's preparing a watery pot of gruel, but his knife is tucked through his belt at a strange angle, easy to grab. Even the boy who tends the chickens looks nervous, casting quick glances at the quarterdeck like a mouse watching for shadows, and still no one speaks. The deck above is still. The men are awake, you can sense it, but they are not moving yet. They are waiting. You climb the ladder slowly, peering out across the deck. His coat is faded, stained from storm and gunpowder, and his eyes are hollow with drink and suspicion. He glances around, sensing the tension. He sees no blades drawn, no torches raised. But he knows. A few of the older sailors are already up, coiling ropes or adjusting lines with a studied casualness. The quartermaster stands near the helm, hands behind his back, eyes narrowed not at the sea, but at the captain's door. The captain has not emerged. A mutiny ain't loud, boy. It's a vote with daggers, not running, not charging, just turning. Quiet, slow, deliberate. So it's come to this, he says, and then more. Boots step away from barrels, ropes are let go, a powder monkey drops his mop. The ship is not a deck of individuals anymore. It has become a single breathing body, and it is turned against its head. If it's loud, it means you did it wrong. You glance toward the cook's corner. It's not just one thing. It's too many. This is the silence before thunder. The stillness that always comes when rules are about to be rewritten in blood. You remember what one of the older pirates once told you below deck, in a quiet hour when the rum softened his tongue. They give him a small cask of water, a sack of hardtack, a flintlock with one shot, and nothing more. Just the invocation of the pirate code, a real code, scrawled in crooked letters and posted in the gun deck. No man to keep any more for himself than his rightful share. The crew may at any time remove a captain by common vote. You'd laughed at the time, but now that silence has weight and the daggers are glinting like teeth, to draw it now would mean death and not a quick one. At last the door creaks open. The captain emerges. He is a tall man, still wearing his sash, though it sags with wear. You've witnessed something older than flags or empires. A law made by desperate men to keep their world from consuming itself. He steps forward. No course change in the night. He calls, voice low, measured. No one answers, just tradition. He turns toward the helm. Quartermaster? The quartermaster takes one step forward. We need to talk, Captain. The crew doesn't jeer. They don't curse him. They don't cheer. Because they know one day they might be the one in the boat. The code is fair, but fair is not safe. That's all it takes. Half a dozen men stop what they're doing. The captain stands very still. The quartermaster nods. Your shares are too high. The chest from Cartagena never seen by the crew. And you flogged Red Tom over a spoiled ration. The captain's eyes narrow. His hand twitches near his pistol. The quartermaster doesn't flinch. We voted last night. You're out. And there it is, the quiet revolution, not a duel, not a coup. The captain's pistol never leaves his belt. He knows better. He breathes once. Then I want my boat. You watch in eerie stillness as the men, now moving as one, begin preparing the dinghy. This is the custom, not mercy. To be marooned is not always to be tied and abandoned. Sometimes it's simply exile, in full view of the law you broke. You help carry the dinghy to the side, your hands trembling slightly. The captain doesn't look at you. His face is carved in quiet fury. He lowers himself into the little boat and pushes off with a single oar. For a while the ship watches in silence as he drifts into the morning mist. Then the quartermaster turns. Votes for the new captain? He says flatly. And just like that, the ship moves again. You stand there, heart pounding, unable to breathe for a moment. And now you understand what the others meant. It's not the mutiny that's loud. It's what comes after. The vote is swift. No parchment, no seal, no grand speech. Just hands raised, nods exchanged, and one name spoken more than the others. The quartermaster declines. As expected, he says he prefers the ledger to the lash. The sun has climbed a little higher now, though it still hides behind a veil of pale cloud. The horizon is flat and wide, endless water and wind, with only the occasional gull to remind you of land far behind. Ahead, there is no clear direction, only the vague promise of a Spanish galleon rumored to be trailing the trade winds out of Veracruz. A man called Grady is chosen instead. Grady, with the scarred cheek and voice like gravel wrapped in cloth. He's not the smartest nor the kindest, but he's steady. And he doesn't steal. That's enough for now. The ship moves again, as if a spell has lifted. The articles keep order, but they don't protect you from the sea or from one another. They only make the chaos manageable, survivable. But today has proven that even that balance is fragile. A few whispered words, a chest of silver unseen, and the world tilts like a ship in a gale. Men climb the rigging. The sails unfurl. The helmsman spits into the sea and smiles like the salt's sweet again. His hands are thick with callus, and he doesn't look up as you pass. You ever seen a second mutiny? He murmurs without turning his head. The tension that had made the very boards groan has ebbed, replaced by a strange calm, not joy, not celebration. The cook serves it with a nod instead of a grunt. The men eat quietly, not because they're afraid, but because they're tired. A mutiny, even a clean one, leaves the crew hollow. It isn't victory. It's survival. Still, he works with a kind of reverence, not wanting to leave anything that might be seen as omen or stain. Nearby, a younger deckhand is carving something into the mast with a knife. It's a date, the date of the captain's fall. No name, just the mark. Not everyone wants to remember. The ship creaks gently, no longer groaning, just breathing. And keep us north of the storm belt for another week. He doesn't wear the old captain's coat. He doesn't stand taller. You think we'll keep this captain long? He asks. He just looks heavier now, as though the title weighs more than the saber on his belt. Just relief. The ship's belly creaks with each shift of current, and the candle light flickers against stacked crates of powder and salted meat. You walk carefully past the hammocks, past the place where the code is tacked with a rusted nail to the wooden wall. You pause to read it again. The rules are simple, almost elegant. You walk quietly along the upper deck, boots clicking softly on damp wood. You pass a sailor scrubbing blood from a corner of the deck, not from the mutiny, but from a cut finger the night before. Below deck, the air is warmer, heavier. You feel every sway, every shift, every groan of the wood, as if the ship itself were a body, and you one of its fleeting thoughts. No man to game at cards for money. Lights out after 8 bells. If any man lose a limb in service, he shall receive 800 pieces of 8. Every man shall have an equal vote. There is fairness here, but not peace. In the corner, one of the older crewmen is humming to himself, sewing a torn sail with a needle curved like a hook. You hesitate. No, he nods. Hope you never do. You don't ask why. Back on deck, Grady, the new captain, is speaking with the quartermaster in low tones. You catch only fragments. No more floggings unless they ask for it. That night, dinner is stew. Thin, but warm. As you eat, a younger pirate sits across from you, no more than 17, with freckles and a red bandana pulled too tight around his head. You shrug. Hope so, he says. Don't want to vote again for a while. You both finish your bowls in silence. Later, the sky turns to velvet. The stars bloom steady and bright, and the wind hums in the sails with a whispering song. You lie in your hammock and close your eyes. The boards above you are stained with years of boots and blood and salt. And somewhere out there, alone in the dark, the old captain drifts. A single oar, a single pistol, one shot. The sea remembers everyone, and the code never sleeps. Days pass, each one folding over the last like a wave washing away footprints in sand. The routine returns, or something like it, though it carries with it the faint echo of what was done. The new captain, Grady, does not bark orders. He gives them quietly, letting the quartermaster relay his will with a nod or a gesture. The crew seems content for now, tension soothed by calm seas and the steady promise of a prize ship on the horizon. But even in peace, there's a kind of watchfulness that never leaves. Pirates don't forget easily, and the code may allow for second chances, but not for naivety. Everyone aboard knows how quickly the tides can turn. One missed haul, one unfair division of spoils, and Grady could find himself in a boat with nothing but the horizon for company. You, too, are more careful. You clean your tools. You eat every meal slowly. You watch who speaks with whom and who's suddenly silent. On the 5th morning since the mutiny, a lookout calls from the crow's nest. Sails. The word runs through the crew like fire through a dry field. Men rush to the railings, eager eyes squinting through the morning mist. Sure enough, far on the edge of sight, a pair of masts slice the sky, square-rigged and pale, against the brightening clouds. The excitement builds not loud or frenzied, but intense murmurs and quickening steps. Prize ships mean coin. Coin means votes, stay calm. For now, Grady joins the lookout with a spyglass. He studies the ship for a long time. Dutch merchant, he murmurs, maybe armed. Maybe not. A murmur runs through the crew. Dutch traders were infamous for being unpredictable, sometimes docile, sometimes desperate. A fight could be a slaughter or a disaster. Grady closes the glass and speaks loud enough for all to hear. No broadside unless they run. We take her by intimidation. The crew nods. This is a test for the new captain and for the ship itself. The shadow of the mutiny still clings like salt on skin. As the hours pass, the pirate ship closes in. The sea is calm, the wind obedient. You're at the forward rigging, helping adjust the foresail, your hands moving with rhythm now learned through repetition and necessity. You feel the hum of the ship through your boots. It is alive today, hungry, but focused. When the Dutch vessel finally comes into range, the pirates raise no black flag. Not yet. Instead, they hoist a false signal, a merchant ensign from Spain, faded but convincing. The Dutch crew will hesitate, wondering who sails toward them and why. Then, at just the right moment, Grady gives the nod. The black flag is hoisted. It unfurls with a snap black as night, bones white and stark against it. A message older than any letter, spoken in no language in all of them. We are thieves, we are armed, and we are coming. The Dutch ship slows. It does not run. Its sails shudder. The men aboard visible now gather near their own railings, uncertain, unarmed. Grady orders the longboats lowered. The boarding party assembles quickly cutlasses, pistols, rope slings. You are chosen to go, not because you are brave, but because you are quick and quiet. The sea between the ships is slick as oil, but your oars cut through it cleanly. As you near the Dutch vessel, no shots ring out, no blades flash, only eyes wide, wary, waiting. The pirates board with ease. No resistance. The Dutch crew surrenders without bloodshed, lowering their heads and stepping back from the hold. Inside, the prize is small, but worthy sugar, wine, and bolts of silk wrapped in tarpaulin. Not gold, but something close to it when bartered in port. Grady treats the captured crew fairly, letting them go with their lives and enough supplies to reach land. It's a smart choice builds a reputation of discipline, not madness. And reputation, at sea, is worth as much as cannon. That night, back aboard your own ship, the spoils are counted. Shares are drawn, and the coin, meager as it is fairly split. Even you, low-ranked, feel the weight of silver in your palm, and the crew, they laugh again, they drink, they sing. The shadows of the mutiny seem to fade just a little. But as the moon rises, you sit apart, staring at your coin and thinking of the man they cast adrift, of what choices bring a captain to ruin, of how many more nights like this the ship can balance before the code is invoked again, because on a pirate ship, calm is never quiet. It's just the sea holding its breath. Days melt into one another on the open sea, where sunrise and sunset are your only clocks, and the rhythm of rope and wind becomes the song your bones learn to follow. With the Dutch ship behind you and silver in every pouch, the crew sails lighter. There's laughter now real, if wary. Dice roll on barrels again, and the cook even seasons the stew with something that smells like garlic. You hear a man hum a shanty as he patches sailcloth, and for a moment the ship doesn't feel cursed. It feels lucky. But mutiny leaves residue like gunpowder after a cannon blast. It hides in corners. It stains the eyes of those who watched, and it never quite fades from memory. The old captain isn't spoken of anymore, but he hasn't been forgotten. His coat still lies bundled in the quartermaster's chest. His saber, rusting a little now, hangs near the tiller, untouched. And that empty cabin at the stern? It still creaks at night as if someone paces within, lost between command and punishment. Captain Grady begins to change to not in rage like the last, but in weight. He sleeps less, eats less, stares more. His voice is quieter, and he doesn't play dice with the men like he used to. He wears the captain's hat now, reluctantly, as if each feather were a sentence. You see him one night, standing at the bow, wind tugging his long coat, eyes fixed on stars that don't answer. You ask yourself, does every captain begin this way? Tall, sure, charismatic, only to shrink under the weight of judgment, of 100 eyes always watching. The code may give power, but it demands perfection, and no man pirate or prince can wear that crown without splinters. A week after the Dutch prize, a storm finds you. It's not sudden, but it is cruel. The sky darkens through the afternoon like an ink spill across parchment. The wind moans low at first, then rises like a scream. By dusk the ship is pitching hard, sails straining, and rain lashes the deck like whips. You tie yourself to a rail with a thick rope and hold fast as the world becomes all motion up and down, side to side, breath and thunder. Lightning cleaves the sky. You glimpse the mast, slick and whipping like a beast's spine, and figures racing to secure it. The sea is a living thing now, heaving in black ridges taller than buildings. You pray not loudly, not even with words, but with clenched teeth and every muscle aching just to hold on. The storm lasts through the night, and when dawn finally peels back the curtain of clouds, what's left is a battered ghost of a ship, sails torn, barrels washed overboard, 2 men missing, and the mainmast cracked at the base like a broken tooth. There is no celebration now, no singing, just groans of the wounded, creaks of the hull, and the quiet murmur of repairs beginning. Grady works alongside the men, hauling rope, checking damage. But his face is harder. He doesn't speak of the dead. He doesn't call for mourning. He simply says, "We keep sailing." That's when the murmurs begin. Quiet at first, small. He didn't pray. He didn't say a word when Thompson went overboard. He didn't even help tie down the chickens. The men whisper it in corners beneath the deck, under the cover of hammer blows and salt-slick rain, the same way they once whispered about the captain before, because on a pirate ship you don't have to break the law to be hated. You just have to falter. You lie awake again that night in your hammock, the ship groaning around you like an old man's breath. The wind still hisses in the rigging, and the sea, though calmer, still rocks you in uneasy cradles. You can't sleep, not really, because now you know the second mutiny always comes quicker than the first. The storm has passed, but something darker has settled on the ship. Not weather, something slower, harder to name. the kind of pressure that builds without lightning. Whispers float like smoke beneath the deck. Not loud, not urgent, just persistent. Shouldn't have lost 2 men. Didn't divide the work fair. Captain's gone quiet again. And the thing is, they're not wrong. Grady has changed. You see it in his eyes, the distance behind them, like he's scanning charts no one else can read. He walks the deck like a ghost. He gives orders, but not with fire. His voice doesn't carry the way it used to, and when he eats, it's alone near the tiller, barely chewing. The crew begins looking sideways again at one another, at the horizon, at the article nailed below deck. The same worn sheet of rules that governed the last uprising. One sailor even traced the ink with his fingertip the other night, whispering the words under his breath like a prayer. Every man shall have an equal vote in affairs of moment. You're not the only one who feels it. The ship has moods like a person, and right now she's tense. The ropes creak louder. The sails flap more violently in calm winds. The boards underfoot seem to resist each step, like even the timbers won't change. If he'd demanded justice, someone might have rallied. But he just says it and lets it float there. Then it happens. The theft is a crack in the hull, not a sinking. But everyone feels the ship listing. Enough to stir the embers. The quartermaster calls a meeting on deck just after dusk. The captain's door creaks more, but no one approaches it. When orders come, they're echoed by the quartermaster, louder than the first. Ripped from the post, nail and all. No one admits to it. No one asks. But its absence says everything, to raise a hand, or not. But either way, you are part of what happens next. The entire crew gathers, faces shadowed by torchlight, eyes narrowed. And if one of us takes more than his share, the whole ship suffers. Just tiredness. One sailor, older and gray at the temples, spits into the sea and says, "Could have been the captain. We didn't count his share ourselves." It's not a fight. Not a brawl, just a theft. I don't steal from my crew. A small chest of coins silver from the Dutch prize is discovered missing. Not much, but enough to matter. Grady is there, arms crossed, jaw locked. "No man here owns that coin alone," the quartermaster says, not raising his voice. The men murmur agreement. Grady straightens, but his voice has no heat, no rage. And that's the worst part. If he'd shouted, they might have believed him. The vote is not called then and there. Pirates aren't fools. They wait, they watch. In the following days, nothing is said directly, but the air changes. Men obey slower. Meals are eaten in pairs, not in groups. And one night, the code disappears from the gun deck. Just gone. The next morning, Grady doesn't come on deck. And by the following night, the whispers become votes. You hear them in the dark under hammocks, beside water barrels, passed hand to hand, like fire beneath a wooden floor. You are part of the crew. You will be expected to stand in the circle. You lie there, unable to sleep, the ship rocking gently, almost kindly, as though she knows another name is about to be scratched into her bones. Because mutiny isn't chaos. It's ritual, and you are no longer a bystander. The night of the second mutiny unfolds not with fire or fury, but with a slow, deliberate stillness that cloaks the ship like a velvet curtain, drawn over the stage just before a hushed and final performance. The moon hangs low and yellow, bleeding its pale light across the silent deck, making every face ghost-like and every shadow longer than it should be. The ship barely moves, anchored by more than tides, anchored by intention, as if the vessel itself understands what is about to take place. No formal meeting is called, no orders shouted, no blades brandished. Instead, the men gather under the mainsail in quiet ones and twos, until half the crew is assembled around a single crate placed in the center of the deck. It is a worn wooden box, lid split with age and lined with a slit through which men begin slipping tokens, one at a time, each shaped like a chip of bone. The ritual is almost reverent, carried out in complete silence except for the soft scrape of boot soles and the quiet clink of wood on wood. You're handed a token, too, passed to you without a word by the ship's cooper, his weathered fingers pressing it into your palm like a question with no answer. It's smooth and round and impossibly heavy for something so small. You watch as the line shortens, each man stepping forward, pausing, dropping his vote, and returning to the edge of the lantern light with a face unreadable as the sea at midnight. These aren't the boys drunk on rebellion. They are tired sailors who know too well the weight of command and the more terrible weight of deciding to take it away. When the quartermaster steps forward to cast his vote last, even he hesitates for a heartbeat, eyes flicking toward the captain's darkened quarters, before he lets the token fall with a sound so soft you feel it more than hear it. No one cheers, no one curses. The vote is done, and all understand what it means. The captain, once chosen, is chosen no longer. But this time there will be no raft, no chest of supplies, no dignified exile into the open blue. This time they will not let him drift. They will simply remove him from their world. There's a jagged sliver of land charted on an old Spanish map, little more than rock and bird nests, and it is there they decide he will be left. No debate, no fury, just inevitability. At dawn they inform him. He says nothing, simply listening, as if he had already known it was coming. He doesn't fight. He doesn't plead. He asks only to bring his compass, and they allow it. When the longboat is lowered into the still water, you stand at the rail, watching as the captain, coatless, swordless, faceless in the gold-white light, steps down into the skiff without so much as a backward glance. No ceremony follows, no last words. The sea accepts him, and the island receives him, its single-bet tree standing like a crooked finger, pointing skyward as if in judgment. When the boat returns to the ship, empty, but for the men who rowed it, the sails are hoisted with unusual silence. And as the ship turns away from the rock, the crew returns to their tasks with mechanical focus. But every movement carries the faint tremble of something left behind, not just a man, but the weight of decision, of judgment rendered by peers without court or king. You return to your hammock that night and lie awake for a long time, feeling the ship breathe around you, listening to the soft groans of timber that sound eerily like sighs in the dark. You cannot stop seeing his face, how calm it was, how resigned, and you wonder if that is what every captain sees in the end. Not mutiny as punishment, but as prophecy. You finally drift into sleep as the sails stretch overhead full again with wind, but you dream not of gold or ports or freedom, but of a compass needle spinning endlessly alone on a forgotten shore, always pointing north, though there is nowhere left to go. The days that follow the marooning stretch out like the endless sea itself, wide and slow and a little too quiet, as though the ship is holding its breath in the wake of what it has witnessed. No one speaks of Grady, not directly, and yet his absence fills the air like a scent that lingers after the flame is gone. Subtle but clinging, impossible to name but impossible to ignore. The horizon is cleaner now, washed pale by summer winds, but there's a tightness in the crew, a nervous hum beneath the surface that no coin or rum seems able to smooth. Routine returns. Yes, the ropes must be coiled, the sails mended, the biscuits rationed, the decks scrubbed, but it all feels different now, like a play being performed without believing the ending. The ship still floats, still hums with wind and wood and salt, but it feels like something has shifted beneath the boards. Something elemental like balance itself has been tampered with. The new captain is chosen quickly, almost too quickly, a man named Jory, with a scar over his lip and a laugh like dry gravel. He was loudest during the vote and quietest after, and now he wears the red sash with the caution of someone who has seen where the sash leads. Jory does not change much. He does not promise gold or glory, nor does he call the crew to prayer or punishment. But every man on board watches him the way sailors watch the sky, not for what it is, but for what it might become. You do your work in silence now, more focused than ever, because there is a truth you have come to understand with bone-deep certainty. It is not enough to avoid mutiny. You must never draw its attention. It is like a sea monster that stirs when the wind changes, and once awakened, it cannot be put back to sleep with reason or mercy. In the evenings you sit near the stern rail and watch the stars blink through the shroud of mist that never fully lifts. The constellations you used to follow with wonder now look like questions hung too high for answers. Somewhere behind you, far beyond the edge of the world, Grady walks a circle in the sand, drinking from his jug, measuring days by the tide, and hoping the compass he begged to keep still spins true. You wonder if he still dreams of command, or if dreams have rotted away into survival, like so much salt pork left too long in the sun. The men avoid talk of him, but you catch glimpses, someone polishing a brass button with a sigh too deep, or a name half started, then swallowed like rum too strong. Even the sails seem heavier now, as though they carry not just wind, but memory. And when the birds return gulls riding the thermals near the mast, you feel their cries echo through your chest like something long buried, coming up for air. The mutiny may be over, the captain may be gone, but the ship has not forgotten. She remembers everything, and now so do you. It is said that the sea does not keep secrets, but that is not true. The sea keeps all of them silently, patiently, forever. And now you understand this in a way that goes beyond words, because every wave that laps against the hull carries with it echoes of voices' unspoken judgments, passed without parchment, and the silent rituals of men who live without laws, yet still create their own. The new captain, Jory, commands with a steady hand and a wary heart, always watching, always calculating, and though the crew does not yet fear him, neither do they trust him, not really. Trust, once broken at sea, returns not in words or votes, but in inches and shared tasks, in fair rations, in weathered eyes meeting for more than a heartbeat. But even so, the atmosphere remains brittle, like glass waiting for the next crack, and no one is foolish enough to pretend the ship has healed. The quartermaster, once the voice of balance, grows quieter with each passing day, as though weary of being the bridge between order and chaos, and some nights you find him sitting near the anchor chain, staring out into the dark as if listening for a sound no one else can hear. You resume your duties, rigging, repairs, powder checks, mapping, your hands moving on instinct while your mind drifts back again and again to the last time your hands dropped a vote into a box, to the look in Grady's eyes as he stepped into that little boat with his compass and his silence, and no place left to steer toward but sky. You imagine him often, now though you wish you didn't, standing barefoot on that island of rock and sea breeze, eyes squinting against the sun, carving notches into a driftwood branch to mark the days his world reduced to hunger-thirst, and the ticking of that small compass that might spin perfectly even while hope does not. The crew moves forward because it must, because the sails must be set, and the salt must be boiled, and the ropes must be tied. But there is a change in them, a faint stiffening of the spine, a reluctance to laugh too loudly or linger too long in conversation. Even the cook speaks in lowered tones now, as if to not disturb the fragile illusion of order holding them together. And then, one morning, you find a carving on the mast, 3 simple lines, scratched fresh into the grain. 1 short, 1 long, 1 short. A signal, old as pirates themselves. You recognize it immediately. Mutiny sign. Not a call to arms, but a warning. A reminder that what happened once can happen again, and will, unless the winds change course. The symbol vanishes by noon, scraped away by someone's knife, but you notice that everyone saw it. Every man avoided that part of the mast, and no one spoke a word about what had been there. That night the sea is still, but your dreams are not. You lie in your hammock, swaying gently with the ship's pulse, and in your sleep. You are back on the island with Grady, your feet sinking into sand, the horizon flat and empty and somewhere, just beyond hearing the creak of a rudder with no wind to catch. You wake with your heart beating too hard, your mouth dry, and the bitter taste of decisions past still clinging to your tongue like salt. The sea does not speak, but it remembers, and now so do you. The ocean stretches endlessly, as it always has, but now it feels less like freedom and more like purgatory, an eternal in-between, where no land waits. No home calls, and the horizon promises only more horizon. The sails flap lazily overhead, in winds that never seem urgent enough, and each day that passes blurs gently into the next, like ink bleeding across wet parchment. The crew falls into a rhythm that feels almost like forgetting, though nothing is truly forgotten, only softened, smoothed over by salt spray and the quiet labor of survival. Jory commands with caution, perhaps too much, always walking the fine line between respect and resentment, never allowing himself to grow too familiar with the crew, yet never harsh enough to become feared. He is a man trying to exist in the space between two ghosts, the memory of the captain before, and the specter of the one they left behind. And though he wears the red sash with authority, you can see in his eyes that he knows it is borrowed, not earned. There is no laughter any more, only short chuckles, the occasional muttered joke half-heartedly delivered. Even the dice games have slowed, the clatter of bone on barrel sounding too much like bones falling into a grave. You begin to notice things you hadn't before, how the sky changes not just in color but in pressure, how the gulls sometimes vanish for days at a time, how the ship itself seems to groan more deeply now, like something old and weary and too full of secrets. Late 1. night, you pass the captain's quarters and hear movement, not footsteps, but pages turning. Jory, you later learn, has taken to reading the old logbooks, one after another, searching perhaps for wisdom, or maybe for comfort. But what he finds in those brittle pages only deepens the creases at the corners of his eyes. You don't ask. What he reads, no one does. Because the log of a captain cast out is as sacred and as dangerous as a confession meant to be read. Yes, but never spoken aloud. When the ship finally makes landfall after many weeks, just a small, nameless cove on a map barely remembered, it is greeted not with cheers, but with relief so quiet it feels like grief. The men move onto the sand like ghosts stepping out, of dreams blinking at trees and flowers and solid ground as though it might dissolve beneath them. They trade with locals salted fish for tar, powder for rum, and though the exchange is peaceful, you can feel the tension in your shoulders only ease slightly, like a knot that refuses to fully loosen. That night you sleep on the beach, under the stars on ground that doesn't sway, but your dreams are still filled with motion endless waves, whispering winds, and the shape of a man standing far away on a rock, too distant to reach but always watching. In the morning the ship calls again, sails rippling gently like sighs, and you return to her as if to a penance, because that's what she is now, not a vessel of freedom or fortune, but a floating reckoning. You glance back at the shore before it disappears behind you, and you wonder, not for the first time, what would have happened if the vote had gone differently, if the box had stayed shut, if Grady had spoken louder or cried or cursed. But mutiny is never about a moment. It is a tide that rises slowly, silently, and drowns only those who don't notice they've begun to sink. And now you know this too well, and it lives behind your ribs like a second heart, always beating, always waiting. The days after leaving shore pass like the tail end of a fever dream, hot and slow, filled with long silences and even longer stares. The water is gentle, the winds soft, and the ship behaves as if grateful for the break from judgment, drifting obediently forward, as though unsure of where it's headed, but determined to move anyway. There is a dullness to everything now, a hollowness that creeps into the timbre of voices and the way tools are handled, like a crew going through the motions of pirating rather than living it, like actors reciting lines they no longer believe. The gold from the last prize lies untouched in the hold, not yet divided, as if the spoils might turn sour if counted too soon after the storm of decision that cast one of their own away. The men still work because they must, because idle hands breed suspicion, but there is a slackness to it, a haze over the deck, like the lull before something sharp. Jory walks the ship with a set rhythm, his boots never faltering on the same creaking boards Grady once crossed. But there is something different in the sound now, like an echo missing its other half. He nods when spoken to, gives orders clearly, and even helps patch a torn foresail himself, but the men respond with nods, not with trust, and each polite "aye" rings out like a measured pause instead of a salute. Even the seabirds that circle overhead keep a wider distance, as if sensing a ship still haunted by its own reflection. One morning, a bottle washes up against the hull clear glass, wax sealed, with a damp scrap of paper curled inside. When opened, it holds no map, no coordinates, just a single word, scrawled in a careful hand. Alone. The bottle is passed from hand to hand without a word, and eventually it disappears below deck. No one speaks of it again, but the message is received nonetheless. That night, as the sky darkens to velvet and the stars shimmer like frost on deep water, a song rises from the lower deck, a low, slow shanty that no one taught, but everyone seems to remember, about a sailor marooned in the wind that refused to bring him back. It is not sung loudly. It is not sung for applause. It drifts upward like smoke, curling around the mast and into the sails, as if the ship herself has joined in mourning what she lost, or perhaps what she helped do. You sit near the galley door, listening, not singing, the notes vibrating faintly in your bones, and you wonder if Grady is still alive, still watching the waves, still counting sunsets, with that compass in his palm. You imagine him growing a beard, talking to the gulls, making a language out of silence. You imagine him remembering every name, every voice, and repeating them at dusk like prayers. And then you realize something else, something elder. It could just as easily be you, any of you. And that knowledge hangs in the air like the scent of gunpowder after a broadside faint, but unforgettable, sweet with danger. The sea stretches around you like an eternal waiting room, and you know, now more than ever, that the ship has no true captain, only men delaying their own turn on the island. Time becomes a peculiar thing, at sea less a line and more a tide, slipping back and forth, dragging moments in, and washing memories out. There is no calendar to mark your guilt, no bell to signal when the weight should lift, and so it lingers, draped across your shoulders like a wet canvas cloak that never dries. The crew continues forward eastward now, toward rumors of a Spanish galleon trailing slow through the Caribbean. But every task feels more like ritual than ambition, a daily sacrament of stitching sails and greasing pulleys and scanning horizons that seem forever just out of reach. Even Jory begins to change, though not in the ways you expect. He becomes more disciplined, more exacting in speech and schedule, more obsessed with clean decks and precise knots and the daily writing of the logbook. He begins checking the compass 4, 5, 6 times a day, as though afraid it might lie to him or simply spin freely like madness untethered. He speaks little to the men, but when he does, there's a forced steadiness in his tone that only highlights the tremble in his eyes, like a man performing the part of captain rather than wearing it. You catch him late one night on the quarterdeck, whispering to himself, repeating lines from the pirate code as though rehearsing them for someone he can't quite face. No one confronts him. No one mocks him, because deep down you all understand. He is not the captain, now just the next man the ship is watching. The vessel seems more alive these days, as if its bones remember every mutiny, every vote, every secret act of justice carried out under stars that pretended not to see. It creaks more deliberately now, groans like an old throat, and once, in the middle of a still afternoon, a mast rope uncoils without reason and dangles like a noose over the helm. It is pulled down quietly, and nothing is said. But you see the look that passes between the boatswain and the quartermaster brief, sharp, almost guilty. That same evening a storm forms without warning, rolling in black from the southern sky. Like smoke over a battlefield, the crew scrambles, reefing sails, checking powder, tying down barrels, but the rain comes fast, sheets of it lashing bare skin and soaking every plank until the ship feels half sunk from above. The lightning flashes in sickly yellow bursts, and for a moment you think you see someone standing at the top of the ruined crow's nest. Just a silhouette, arms outstretched, hair wild. When you blink, it's gone. No one else mentions it, but you cannot shake the image. You lie awake that night with the scent of wet rope and gunpowder still clinging to your clothes, and a single thought turns over and over in your mind like a coin dropped in the dark. Mutiny is not. A moment it is a rhythm, and once you've felt it, you're always moving in time with it, even when the song is silent. The ship moves on, splitting calm waters under moonlight, its wake narrow and strange, as though it slips not just through the sea, but through something deeper, through guilt, through memory, through the echo of a name no one dares to say aloud anymore. And all the while the compass in the map room spins true, but your heart does not. The silence grows, not louder, but heavier, more complete. It wraps itself around each task, each passing day, until even the wind seems to blow more gently, as if afraid to disturb the balance on board. You wake each morning to the same sounds ropes. Stretching, boards creaking, the faint rustle of the mainsail, but beneath all of it is that stillness, like a deep breath never fully exhaled. The ship sails clean and well, with no enemy in sight and no storm on the charts, yet the mood among the crew is darker than it ever was during rough waters. Men speak less now, and when they do, they use their voices like coins in short supply, never wasted, never thrown. The mess deck, once filled with laughter and jabs, is now a place of quick meals and eyes that don't meet, and the gold still lies untouched below. Jory has not yet dared divide it. Some say he's waiting for another port. Others whisper that he's afraid of what the act might awaken. You aren't sure anymore. All you know is that the red sash looks heavier on him every day, more like a yoke than a badge. You see the way he lingers by the logbook at night, staring at pages written by other hands, sometimes tracing a line with his fingertip, as if hoping it might guide him somewhere. Safe. But there is no safe harbor when a ship remembers, and this one does. It remembers how justice was taken into its own hands. It remembers the vote. It remembers the island. Even the rats seem quieter now, scuttling with care, keeping to shadows, as if they too sense that the ship no longer belongs fully to the living. A week passes, then another. And with each sunless dawn and starless night, the crew begins to fade into routine like monks in a silent order. There is no rebellion brewing, no whispers this time, but something far stranger takes its place. Reverence. A reverence not for Jory, not for any man aboard, but for the ship itself. She has become something more than wood and nail. She has become judge and priest and confessional. You see it in the way men touch the railings when they pass, murmuring under their breath, or how one sailor leaves a biscuit at the base of the foremast every night like an offering. You see it when a hammock is left swinging, untouched, for 3 days after the man who slept there vanished without explanation. No one asks. No one moves it, and in the quiet you begin to realize that fear has changed shape. It's no longer fear of each other, it's fear of the vessel that cradles you, fear of being weighed, found wanting, and carried gently to punishment without a single word spoken. You remember the mutiny not as a decision now, but as a spell, something cast beneath stars with tokens as incantations, and you remember the man it banished, not cruel, not broken, just tired, just worn down by the silence that comes after. Authority begins to slip. You lie in your hammock and close your eyes, and the sway of the ship no longer feels like rocking. It feels like breathing, her breathing, and you do not know what she dreams of, but you know you are inside it now, and there is no shore in sight. The ship drifts now more than it sails, carried not by wind, but by a kind of uneasy stillness, as if it has slipped into a place between the world of tides and the realm of memory. The stars above grow dimmer by the night, their constellations, warped, less familiar, like watching the sky from beneath thick glass. No storms rise, no birds follow. No other sails have been sighted in weeks. It's as though the sea has emptied itself to watch you, the whole crew suspended in a long, slow descent into something deeper than the ocean, something quieter. Jory walks less now. He keeps to his cabin during daylight hours, emerging only at night, wrapped in a heavy cloak, even when the wind is warm. You see him sometimes standing at the stern, staring out into the black water, lips moving silently, fingers twitching in rhythm to thoughts you cannot hear. Once you pass close, enough to hear a single phrase, "We chose wrong." You don't ask. You don't want to know what he means. Below deck, the men have stopped whistling, stopped shaving, stopped marking days on the beams with chalk. Time no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the ship, and the ship has chosen to slow it, stretch it, fold it inward until every hour feels like dusk and every meal tastes like memory. The gold remains untouched, tucked deep in the hull, yet it gleams brighter each time you check it, as though it feeds off the silence, growing more alive while the men grow less so. You begin to dream not of the island, but of the ship herself, her ribs creaking like voice, her masts stretching like arms, her shadow passing over the deep, not as a vessel, but as a creature ancient and waiting. You dream of the compass too, the one Grady took with him, spinning uselessly on a rock surrounded by nothing but surf and gull cries. In your dream he is smiling not with peace, but with knowledge, as if the island set him free, as if it was the ship that kept him prisoner all along. One night a crewman vanishes his hammock, neatly folded, his boots placed at the foot of his chest. No note, no blood. No one speaks of it. You merely shift supplies forward to cover the space. Another begins painting his cabin wall with black tar, line by line, a slow spiral that never ends. When asked why, he says only to quiet the wood. You no longer sleep deeply. You drift. The ship rocks beneath you with a rhythm too precise, too knowing, like a cradle meant to comfort and cage. You startle awake each time your dreams pull too close to the memory of Grady's face or the vote you cast. You have tried to tell yourself it was necessary, that the mutiny was fair, the vote just, the island chosen with care. But justice is a fragile sail, and the wind that carried you then has stilled. Now you are adrift inside something else, something older, something that knows all your names and waits patiently for the weight of your guilt to become too much. And the worst part is, you are beginning to think it is right.